I'm Bob Schickedanz, President of the Ontario Home Builders Association.
And I'm Melissa Schenk, SABA's Executive Officer.
We're here in Hamilton. It's hard to believe with all these homes behind us, the city is experiencing a housing crisis.
You know what, Bob? It's time to cut the and build more homes. Bob and I have arrived in Hamilton. It is our first official stop here on our campaign trail, otherwise known as the Heart of Ontario. And as we talk about the housing crisis, I'm joined by the one and only Mike Collins-Williams, CEO of the West End Home Builders. And Mike, you've been an urban planner, you've been in the industry quite a long time. But what are the housing issues that you're seeing directly here in Hamilton?
Well, thanks for making the trip down to Hamilton. Excited that you're here. I'm seeing a lot of challenges. So I've got about 2 decades of experience as an urban planner in the housing industry. And the theme that I find in Hamilton and in a lot of other communities across the province is everything seems to be taking longer. There's more frustration. It's becoming more and more complicated. The systems that we've set up make it more difficult for housing to get built. So my biggest frustration is I think the politics around housing have become toxic, quite frankly. There's always a reason to say no. And, you know, whether it's building a new high-rise, whether it's building secondary units or, you know, basement apartments, gentle density, missing middle, or, you know, perhaps that home with the white picket fence in the backyard for the barbecue. Planning has become political. It's become hyper-political. And unfortunately, a lot of local politicians and communities, when they see more growth and more housing happening, there never seems to be a pathway to a yes. It's often a pathway to no and more negotiation or appeals, and that's just driving the cost of housing up.
And it seems not only in Hamilton, but Hamilton especially, there is a demand for housing. Like, there is a wait list.
There is a huge demand in this city. Like, Hamilton's an awesome city. I just moved here myself, so perhaps I'm part of the problem with the growing population. But Hamilton's projected to grow by about 230,000 people over the next 30 years. They may be underestimating the amount of growth because we've got so much great stuff happening in this city. We got a brand new GO station, the West Harbour GO station, directly connecting to the rest of the 905. In Toronto, that station's going to be electrified soon, so much faster transit. The federal and provincial governments are investing $3.4 billion in building a new LRT. So there's great opportunities for more housing. There's great opportunities for better restaurants, more commercial. Like, we've got so much going for us. And people want to live here, but they're becoming frustrated because, you know, if you want to buy a resale home, you're going to be in a bidding war with 10 other people, 15 other people. And of course, you know, the houses are going for like $100,000 over asking. And if you want to buy a new home, well, good luck. You've got to get on a waiting list and hope to win the lottery even to have the opportunity to buy that home. So the cost of housing is going up and incomes just aren't keeping pace.
What would you like to see? I guess maybe from an urban planner perspective.
We need to create a framework, and it's going to have to come from the provincial government because it's a challenge at the local level. I understand the challenges that local councillors are under. You know, they're often answering to their constituents who don't want to see change. And the fact is that we are in a growing dynamic region and change is coming, people are coming. We need a more assertive provincial government that provides a framework to allow that answer to be yes. Yes, we need more housing. We need to cut the red tape. We need to cut the timelines. We need to cut the hypocrisy. Everybody knows that we're in a housing crisis. The federal government, in their recent budget, has just said we need to double the housing production across the country to 3.5 million homes over the next decade. The Provincial Housing Affordability Task Force back in January said that we need to double the production in Ontario to 1.5 million homes over the next decade. And locally, whether it's in Hamilton or other communities, we know there's a housing crisis. The politicians talk about how there's a housing crisis. And then when a controversial application for more homes comes across their desk, the easy answer is always no.
So one last question for you would be, so we need to build more homes. How are we going to do that with also our shortage in the skilled trades, do you think?
That's a great question, and the answer, and this is part of the challenge of the housing crisis, is we need to bring more people with skills from the best and the brightest around the world, be it plumbers, electricians, carpenters. We need to focus immigration on those skilled trades, and we need to encourage more youth to get into the skilled trades. Our home builders locally are working with Mohawk College, we're working with the high schools, we're trying to demonstrate to young people that there are great opportunities in the skilled trades to work outside, to work with your hands, to build something tangible, and you can make a pretty good income and a pretty good career with it. It is in high demand.
And what some people may not know, I think, and you would know this again in urban planning, but Ontario as a province, I believe, has some of the lowest per capita housing per capita across the province than any other provinces, right?
Scotiabank just did a report earlier this year that out of the G7, Canada had the lowest housing units per capita, and Ontario was in the sort of top tier in the country in terms of those provinces with the least housing units per capita. So we're behind the 8 ball. We've been growing at an incredible rate, and that's a good sign. That means people from around the world, they look to this province as a place that they want to settle down, they want to grow roots, they want to grow their family and live their lives, and we just need to build more homes.
You got it. Okay, I want to throw to Bob now. I believe he is over by the Hamilton sign.
I'm here with Dan Gabriel, president of Mars Homes. Dan, as a long-standing builder in this community, tell us a little bit what your experiences are in supplying the homes that this neighborhood in this area needs.
Well, as you know, Bob, we're in the middle of a housing crisis, and there just simply isn't enough housing to go around for the residents of the city of Hamilton and the future residents that are going to come. We've heard from the federal and provincial government that housing is a top priority for the people and the citizens of Canada, and we need to have our municipalities also follow in that initiative and to have a strategy that will allow for the continual supply of housing within their communities. I feel that it hasn't been a priority for them, but to this point, this is the now opportunity for this to be a number one priority, because without adequate housing for residents and citizens, it has a huge societal impact as far as gentrification, people being able to afford to live in the community that they grew up in, and the employment opportunities and possibilities within a community, and just being able to support jobs and future growth and employment within the community. When housing is not affordable, all that is lost.
So tell us a little bit about some of the numbers that affect your company.
Well, I can give you a couple interesting statistics. I'll tell you about us owning a piece of property here in the urban boundary, and we have been waiting over 20 years to have approvals to build on the property, and it'll probably be another 3 or 4 years that before we are able to get final approval and building permits. And there's a considerable area of land here that is much in the same condition, and we're talking about a quarter of a century to build a townhome or any type of residence, and of course that's just going to create the crisis that we're in right now. I'm going to share another interesting or a relevant point is that in a new release that we have coming out, there are over 10,000 registrants looking for a new home, and there are only an offering of 200 units. So it is not a scenario that is acceptable in this present time.
Well, it makes it really tough for somebody to buy a home, for sure. Earlier today, we had the opportunity to visit the West End Home Builders Association office and talk to some of their young leadership about this current housing crisis in the Hamilton area. I'm joined by Natasha, Michelle, and David, our next generation of industry leaders. Over to you, Natasha. As a builder, what are you seeing out there?
Well, Bob, I'm seeing the lack of housing supply from 2 different perspectives. One, as a builder, we cannot satisfy demand. Last year, we launched 1 condo project in the city of Hamilton, and for the 220 units we had available, we've received over 2,000 requests to purchase in the building. And 2, the other perspective I have is that my friends cannot get into the market with that imbalance of demand and supply.
Yeah, Natasha, I'm finding the same problem. A lot of my friends are having to move outside of the city as far as Paris or North Bay to find a place to live.
And David, as a young lawyer, what are you seeing out there?
I see purchasers facing an uphill battle the entire process in terms of home buying. In terms of availability, as was mentioned, there's a lack of supply. So I see young purchasers spend months, if not years, trying to find a home that they can afford. Affordability is a huge concern. It's very rare that I see a young home buyer being able to afford a home without help from their parents, another family member, or even generally without having to undertake lending terms that I feel are unfair. And finally, I see significant delays. It's extremely hard to get a project off the ground, but also to get it to completion. And so we see young home buyers waiting years to finally move into their home, on top of projects that are canceled due to lack of approvals.
Well, it's pretty clear that Hamilton area is experiencing a significant housing crisis. If you're concerned, go to the website, ontariobuildmorehomes.ca. Sign the pledge and become involved.
Look for us Thursday at 11 a.m. We'll be coming to you live from London.